fake studio audience.
Yeah.
Oh,
right. That was quick.
Who shut off the applause sign? Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Cory Means Business podcast and YouTube show. We got a good one for you today. I want to introduce, of course, my co-host, Mucho.
How you doing? You almost forgot my name.
No, I was just trying to hype you up. I was trying to be your hype man. So I was like, what can I say? Like, what's the joke I can make about, the man with the most, Mucho. Yeah. There's a reason why you get the man with the most.
I get confused. A lot of people say macho, and I'm like, no. Macho,
I'm the man with the most.
Yeah.
And then back by popular demand, I got to tell you guys, I got all kinds of messages on this, there was all kinds of comments on the YouTube video. They were like, we need more Shane. We need more Shane. So back by popular demand is my trusty operations manager, Shane. He's back. Welcome back to the show, Shane.
I don't really know what those people are thinking, but
it's the voice. It's the voice. Come on now. You put a comment below. Let them know what it is. It's the voice. We all know what it is. It's the Jesus spirit. It's the Jesus spirit and the voice.
I'll take it.
And he wore the hat today, which is great too. That's fantastic. He didn't know he was going to be on the show today, and he still wore the hat. So.
Gotta rep it.
Yeah, man. Give him props for that.
I haven't seen this hat. Oh, that's a nice hat.
Isn't that pretty cool? I got one for you.
All right.
Yeah. To hook you up. Cory Means Business hats. So today we're going to talk a little bit about some current events and how they're affecting business and, just kind of the business environment that we're in. Business is always going to be changing with current events. Clearly, as you guys know, that have businesses and work in businesses, which is everybody, current events and the things that go on in the world affect business dramatically. We've certainly learned that over the last couple of years. So we're going to talk a couple of hot topics today that's in the news and in the news cycle that I think has more to do with business than maybe most people think it does. So we're going to talk about that as our business coaching today. So first up, the biggest thing in the news, I think, when it comes to what's going on is Rogan. He's been in the news tremendously, and I know he's a hot topic. Everyone's got an opinion on Rogan. So I was like, well, we better have an opinion on Rogan too, right? So let's get our Rogan topic in. So Mucho, what do you think about it, man? What do you think about what's going on with Rogan?
I love the guy, man. I've been a fan of Rogan for a while, and it's just hilarious to see when somebody has an opinion or freedom of speech, how the media just tries to wrangle them in, And I just think it's hilarious because they're just giving him more publicity. I mean, they think they're hurting him by attacking him in most media, but really they're just making his name bigger, his podcast even more. I mean, His podcast was already huge, but now it's in everybody's mouth and mind. It's newspapers, TV.
We were talking about in the pre-show, like, if somebody of an authority or somebody who perceived an authority comes and tells you, don't watch this, don't do that. I mean, the first thing you're going to do is go do it because you're like, well, what are you trying to keep me from seeing? The curiosity becomes too much.
I just don't understand what's the big deal with him saying what he says. I mean, the media wants you to think that he's miseducating people, but whatever happened to freedom of speech, letting people do what they got to do. And, they say he's trying to control people with his misinformation. So what are you doing?
Correct. Well, everybody tries to control everybody with information. That's what this existence is, right? This plane we're on is all about communication. Communication's everything. There's nothing else. It's all communication. Yeah. So communication is what controls everything, controls all thought processes. How you communicate with yourself controls your own thought processes. Yeah, the idea behind trying to cancel Joe Rogan is, it's just asinine. I mean,
it is.
For what? For having an opinion, for bringing other perspectives. And never in my life, and I'm not a young man like Shane over here, I've never heard of this word misinformation. Not any kind of like an actual like conversational level. Yeah. It's one of those words that you heard like once in a while, but now it's like a buzz term. Yeah. Right? It's like it's been weaponized, misinformation. What does that even mean, misinformation? I don't even think it's a real thing. I mean, you can't even say misinformation is a real thing because information is always changing.
Yeah.
Misinformation, what's on the other side of that curtain over there? Well, I don't know. So is that misinformation, or is it just I don't know, right? Or what's over there right now this minute could be one thing, but then somebody moves or parks something or moves something over there, and now it's something else. Was that misinformation? No, it's just information, not misinformation. Now, the information you get, in my opinion, you as an individual have to assess. You have to think critically and assess whether or not this is good information that I can use, information that I want to discount, information that affects me and applies to me, or information that doesn't apply to me.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, information. I don't know there's any such thing as misinformation. I don't think there's anything such thing as bad information. There's just information, and then you have to assess for yourself what you think is good and bad.
Well, that used to be what freedom was, right? That you had the right to look at things and form your own opinion on what you research or what you feel or what you think it is, right? So why are they trying to cancel him for him putting out an alternative source of information, or because he has an opinion? I just think that's asinine, and it's hypocritical because, a lot of the media nowadays is telling you, well, this is right what we have. We triple checked it, and scientists and doctors said it. Great. I'll do my own research on that myself.
Well, yeah, because I think you can have three science.
The science changes just as much as your opinion.
Right. I mean, and certainly that used to be what actual science was, is it was evolving. It was a living, breathing thing. So science was always like this living, breathing thing. It was never like settled. There's no such thing as settled science.
No, not at all.
If there's settled science, well, then we don't need any more scientists. It's all settled. It's all over
fact.
with.
Yeah,
then what do you need another scientist for? You might as well cancel every science course and person majoring in science that there is, because it's all settled, right? Of course, it can't be settled. Science is never settled. So science is always evolving. It can't be settled. No one scientist can have all the information. Anybody can have all the information. What we used to think, 100 years ago was possible, we now look at as, that was completely wrong. And what they thought was impossible, we now say, well, that's pretty normal every day. I mean, that's how science works. It's always evolving and always changing. 20 years ago, they didn't have any proof there was other planets. Now, they have the space telescopes now that spot, every star has 5 or 6 planets on average around it. That's how science works. There's no such thing as the science. And I think that's, wouldn't you say, Shane, kind of like the lesson here is that somebody ever tries to tell you the science, that's pretty much, you need to say something's wrong here?
Yeah, it's backwards, because science, as I was taught in school, science goes both ways. There's always going to be two sides. One's going to disprove the other, and it's a back and forth cycle. With science is meant to be disproven and improved on.
Right. Well, scientific theory is meant to be a theory based upon some observation that you've made, some studies you've made, some experience that you've made, that those experiments oftentimes are found to be irrelevant later on, after somebody does another set of experiments and then finds out, that you had a wrong control group, or you had a wrong variable, or you had something that you weren't taking into an account. If you look back, because I'm a scientist, I've got 2 degrees in science. You look back on some of the old scientific methods, they used to believe this, and this will blow your mind, but this just shows you what the science will do for you. 300 years ago, 200 years ago, not that long ago, in the 1800s, they didn't understand microbiology. They didn't understand microorganisms, right? I don't crucify me for not being right on the exact date, but not that long ago in our history, they had no idea of molecular biology. If you couldn't see it with your eyes, right under just the primitive microscope, it didn't exist.
Yeah.
So they leave rotten meat out, or they leave meat out, right? As an experiment. And we all know what happens when you leave meat out now, right? It's going to start getting nasty and smelly, and then next thing you know, maggots will start coming up. Do you know they believed that maggots were actually the meat regenerating itself? That's what the science used to think.
Yeah,
The science used to think that maggots that would come out of this rotting meat was actually the meat like regenerating itself, coming back to life type of a thing. Because they weren't paying attention that the flies were landing on the meat and laying eggs, and they couldn't see the eggs, right? Because they were microscopic, and so you had no idea where these maggots were coming from. They just thought the flies were So that's where the science can take you.
So if
the science also, convinced a whole bunch of people that were witches, and they all burned them at the stake because of the science. So the science is not very reliable.
So in those two instances, if somebody came up and said, hey, maybe it's not the meat regenerating themselves, and they told that person, you're wrong, the science is right, so you can't live in this village anymore. Isn't that in effect what they're doing to Joe Rogan?
Yeah. So with Joe Rogan, they're basically saying, the scientists that you have on that you're just asking questions of, because Joe Rogan doesn't present himself as an expert at anything.
No, he doesn't. Not at all.
Which is part of his appeal. I think again, a big part of the draw that people like about Joe Rogan is he's very unassuming. He doesn't say I know everything. No. He says I'm going to have some people on and I'm just going to ask questions. He's a great interviewer, and he's funny. So then he makes jokes about what they say or what their answers are. But he's an observationalist, but he's not an expert. He doesn't profess to be an expert at anything.
He even says he's not.
Yeah.
Over and over and over again.
Right. And again, he's very clear about the people he has on, even though they may have credentials that, would choke an elephant. He doesn't say they're even necessarily the science or experts. He just says this is their perception or their view of it. And again, it used to be protected. Again, the First Amendment, right?
Yes.
Freedom of speech. And there was a reason why the founding fathers made that the First Amendment and why it was so important, because they realized without freedom of speech, your society will collapse really quick.
Yeah.
If you start cutting off people's ideas and people's thoughts and you start censoring stuff like that, you will collapse your society really, really, really fast. And my fear is that's what the attempt really is to collapse this society. So any final thoughts on Joe Rogan before we move on to the next topic?
I got to say one thing you pointed out with him not being an expert. He doesn't portray him that way or himself that way. He lets the other party more so take over. He just adds in like the questions, lets it flow. He had, Ben Shapiro.
Yeah.
They disagree a lot. On a lot of things they will disagree.
Right.
But they both have that mutual respect for each other.
Yeah.
And that's something that the current situation, they've divided the society that we had. When I was younger, I never would have seen living in a society like this.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Everyone, got along. It was patriotic. And it's so backwards now. But you see with him, it's a shining example of people getting tired of it.
Yeah.
There's plenty of backlash. He's grown from it.
Yeah.
And that's what I appreciate about the situation the most right now is that I see people starting to wake up to, they've kind of forgotten propaganda. Propaganda exists, and they're trying to use it on him, but it's backlashing right now.
Yeah, it's back. It's going to backfire because it always does. You can't be on the wrong side of morality and win. You can be on the wrong side of morality and pull some shenanigans, right? Like our media has done, and our social media has done. You can pull some shenanigans for a short period of time, but in the end, you can't be on the wrong side of morality and win. You just can't do it. Yeah. So they will lose because at the end of the day, freedom of speech is the moral high ground. That is the right moral compass. Shutting off people's ability to speak and speak their mind and their opinions, even when they could be wrong or even when you don't like it. Without that essential part of our civilization, again, in my opinion, you can't have a civilization. Civilization does not work without that. Without the public square and everybody getting their say and everybody getting to, share their idea, right or wrong or otherwise, and everybody at least considering whether or not their idea could be right or whether it should, it isn't right. But without having given them the permission and the freedom, you will collapse your society really, really fast. Yeah. And for those people out there, and again, I feel really sad for the people out there that do the, the little kid thing. No, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I mean, you're a full grown adult. I mean, we used to do that in third grade, right? Just to irritate whoever was trying to tell you something. But full grown adults are doing that now, Don't listen to them. Don't listen to them. It's misinformation. That's insane. That is absolutely insane.
And if you're not being cordial, like you were saying, man, they're just not being cordial, and that's insane too. Part of being in a free society is we're going to disagree, but we can get along.
Right. And again, you don't need to cancel anybody, especially if you're believing you're fair-minded and you're fair-balanced, and you're going to just, look at everything and assess everything and then make proper decisions or, intelligent decisions. Why would you even feel the need to cancel anybody?
Yeah.
The thing about real misinformation, if it is a thing, or, I'll say bad information, is it'll cancel itself, because as soon as it gets tested, it automatically gets discounted by the group. So the group will eventually say, no, that guy, the information he was given, it's bad. Don't listen to it anymore. And not that people will try to shut him up. They'll just discount it, and they'll just say like, yeah, no, he's wrong on that. And they'll move on. But nobody's freaking out. No one's trying to shut him up or tape his mouth shut because, they're so worried that somehow if they listen to this bad information, that somehow now they're going to be operating off of that. Yeah. What's the fear? What's the fear? That they're going to trick you? That's the fear, that you're going to listen to some bad information and that information is going to trick you into something. Well, if that's the case, if you're that mentally weak, you got more problems than misinformation.
Seriously.
Yeah, cancel culture shouldn't exist, and I agree. We talked about a little bit in the pre-show. Whoopi Goldberg was trying to cancel Joe Rogan and actually got herself canceled.
Yep, another backfire.
Because again, you can't win. If you're on the wrong side of morality, you can't win. You're going to lose in the end.
That is irony, man. That is hilarious.
Yeah, it was hilarious. So yeah, Whoopi Goldberg got on there and was trying to get Joe Rogan canceled and saying Spotify should remove him and this and that. And then she ends up like having an opinion about the Holocaust, and
she gets canceled.
Yeah, then she said it wasn't it wasn't based on race, and then next thing you know, she gets canceled for 2 weeks. I think they're going to let her go too. I think the 2 weeks. I've never seen, except for that Tubin guy, right? Which, did you hear about that one?
Yeah, and he's back on TV.
He's back on TV. This guy was literally like rubbing
now.
One out on a freaking Zoom call with business meeting, and like he gets back. I can't.
Every time I see him on TV, all I can think about, you're that dirty bird.
I can't believe he came.
I don't even want to listen to your information. You're that dude that was rubbing one out.
Yeah, and that anyone that just looks at him and saying, anything comes out of his mouth, like that's the dude rubbing one out on freaking a Zoom call. Yeah, there's no way you listen to that. Anything, there's no way you listen to that guy. Anything he says. So yeah, but I don't think there's no coming back for Whoopi, unfortunately, because there's certain forces that you piss off in that world and you don't come back. Rubbing one out ain't gonna do it, but what she said might do it. So.
Right.
So cancel culture is bad. Business owners out there, you look at this stuff, and I know like you look at some of these big corporations and they go with these political stances and this and that. It's all nonsense. As a small business owner, you can't get away with something like that. As a business owner, you always just have to take the moral high ground. You just have to say, look, what's right and wrong, and I'm going to stand by what's right, and I'm not going to go for what's wrong. And at the end of the day, if you have customers that you think you'll lose because you're going to choose what's right and wrong, and you'll lose them because they want to be wrong, well, then you got to let those people go. Anyway, you don't do business with those people anyway. And, you say, well, okay, Cory, what's right? What's right for you and what's wrong for you? Hey, look, right and wrong is right and wrong. Anybody that says the science, I already know you're wrong. Because if you're trying to shut up other scientists, I already know you're wrong, because you would have no reason to shut down other scientists if you believe your science is correct. Yeah. That would be like Einstein, after coming up with the theory of relativity, right? And some other top scientist says, well, I got some questions. No questions. You can't ask any questions about it. Okay. Instantly we would know his theory of relativity is full of shit. Yeah. We would know it's crap, because there's no way he would just want to shut down every other scientist that had questions about his theory. Yeah. Right. So with the second that, so how do you know what's right and wrong with filtering all the noise? Is the person telling you something trying to get you not to listen to somebody else? That's the litmus test. And that's always been the litmus test in business. Especially for salespeople. if you're ever getting sold to by a salesman, or you're selling somebody and you're trying to get your prospects or your customers not to look at some other product or some other service or some competitor, because you're worried about it, it's because your stuff is full of shit, and the competitor is better. That's why you don't want them to see the competitor. Yeah. That's the point. So again, anybody that tells me, oh, don't listen to that person, I already instantly know that you're wrong. Because you wouldn't be doing that if you knew you were right. If you knew you were right, you would challenge me to go listen to the other person, because you'd say, absolutely, go listen to that guy. And then when you figure it out, come back to me. If you knew you were right, that's how you'd approach it. So that's how you can tell right information from wrong information. Is the person willing to let you, or even telling you to go listen to the counter argument? If they're not, if they're trying to sway you from the counter argument, you already know instantaneously right there, they know they're full of shit.
Yeah.
They know they're full of shit.
Or uneducated.
Yep. All right. Well, again, it has nothing to do with intelligence. It's just anybody that does that move, psychologically, anybody that does that move, they know they're full of shit.
Spits out to me, I saw it on TV, on the news, and to me, it's like, that's your education. That's it. That's your only source.
Yeah, you have to see other sources. You have to go look at and you always look for the counter argument.
Yeah.
If somebody tries to convince me of anything, convince me that this light is the best light for the studio, I'd say, okay, I'm definitely going to look at this light and consider it, but I'm going to go look at the competitor's light, because them telling me this is the best light, maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
Exactly.
Now, if I say I'm going to go look at the competitor's light, and then people that sell this light say, no, don't you dare go look at that competitor's light. Well, then I already know this light's bullshit.
Yeah.
Instantly, right? Don't even need to tell me. I already know, right? Yep. So same thing with people. People operate the same way. All right, so kind of moving on to this whole freedom of speech, freedom of thought. The truckers, the Canadian truckers. Shane, what do you think of the Canadian trucker situation? I know you're following it closely.
Oh, very close. I gotta say I love them.
Right.
Because I shouldn't say even in Canada, but Canada's media is portraying them, again, to be a vicious group. They posted that they were stealing food from the homeless. Meanwhile, they're all like cooking, giving food to the homeless. When you see actual footage from people that
Stealing
are there.
food from the homeless.
Yes.
Wow.
They were saying that.
Jeez.
But what I love about it is it shows the power that the people really hold. And a lot of the times, people think, oh, it's the government. They have the ultimate say in it. But when you're messing with the group of workers or business owners that really are the backbone of a country, because without truckers, you got nothing.
No, you literally have nothing without truckers.
Yeah,
we're all going to starve to death real quick without truckers.
Most people can't survive. There's a few survivalists. They'll make it.
Very
few. Most of us.
Very few.
Common person like me, I ain't making it. I'll make it a few days, but not past that. But I don't know. It's showing the true power of, it's suffocating Trudeau right now. And have you been on Trudeau's pages at all recently?
That guy is such a lunatic.
He needs to go. It's way past his time.
Yeah, it's way past his time. When your people literally like drive across the frozen tundra of your country, just to like piss you off, you already know you're it's time to go. Everyone hates you.
It's time.
It's showing a lot of Canadians what the true color is of Trudeau. Ooh, that's not a good, because of his blackface thing.
Oh, right.
He should have left during that.
Yeah. Well, I love how he tells them, well, they're a bunch of racists, and this guy's been in blackface. Like,
I know, right?
He's lost count of how many times he's been in blackface, and he's calling people racist.
He's portraying himself as something he's definitely not. And this whole situation is really waking up from what I see on, the comments because Canadians used to really love the dude. Like, who he was, like most politicians, he becomes a snake and stabbed him in the back. Yeah. But it's really waking up a lot of people on the comments. They're sick of him.
Yeah, like most con artists, when you first meet a con artist, right, or a crook, they come across very personable, and oh man, they care. They ask you all kinds of questions. They come across they really care about you, and they really have your best needs
sounds
in
like
mind.
A politician, not a crook.
Well, again, kind of goes hand in hand, right? Politicians and crooks have always gone hand in hand. We used to know that. I don't understand how people lost the that idea that we all knew, you know, how do you tell when a politician, it reminds me of a joke. How do you tell when a politician's lying? Their lips are moving, right? When that used to be well known, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I trust you. What you fucking trust a politician? You trust no politicians. You assume they're lying until proven otherwise. That's how you have to operate with politicians, because unfortunately, when you look at the type of people that are going to go into politics, just think about who that would attract. Okay, is politics going to typically attract our best and brightest? Well, you look at a mayorship, right? Even at a good sized city, what is it, 80 grand a year or something like that? You know, you're gonna take a lot of criticism, a lot of heat. You got to raise a lot of money and do all this work trying to get this $80,000 a year job. I don't buy it. You know, even at the top of the chain, top of the food chain, you know, senators, Congress people, you're telling me that they're going to go and raise these millions and millions of dollars and go through everything they got to go through trying to get this $176,000 a year job that they got to travel across the country away from their family for all the time. Yeah, bullshit. I don't buy it. Nope. So you already know right there, financially, it's not even a good job.
No,
right?
It's not.
Most people wouldn't, even if you said like, hey, I'll pay you $176,000 a year. You just got to fly back across the country, 10 times a month, be away from your family for a good 200 days.
Be hated
cool
by
with
half
that.
your population.
Be hated by it by most people. You know, you cool. You wouldn't even take that job. It wouldn't even matter if it was a good job. That job is crap.
Yeah, no.
So you already know there's other reasons why they're doing it. And I don't think it's a coincidence that they all go in broke and come out like super millionaires, you know, multi-millionaires. It was like, wait, how'd that $176,000 W-2 pay, you know, turn into you're worth $30 million after like 7 years of it? That's some good math, man. Not even me. And you guys know I'm really good at manipulating math for business numbers to make businesses grow, but I can't do that. That's beyond my capabilities, but somehow they're figuring it out.
The money under the table, you haven't counted that.
Yeah. So again, with the truckers, man, I think they're really exposing. I think you're right, Shane. They're really exposing a lot of the corruption that's been going on and the real motivations of the people that's been giving us advice over the last couple of years. Obviously, this is on YouTube. We can't go too far down the rabbit hole, but they're just, God bless them, love them, man. They're really exposing the nonsense. At the end of the day, people want to just get a good job, want to have a family, want to have their freedom, don't want to be told what to do, want to be good citizens, want to do their part for their communities, want to have their family safe, want to have their kids fairly educated, right? And I think that's the common ground that we all have to operate off of. Yeah. Like, this is the life we all want. Like, we all want that. We all want to be safe. We want to have a good job. We want to provide for our families. We want to be, have freedom. We want to, be able to do good in our communities. That's pretty much the common ground all of us have. Yeah. Then you say, okay, how do we supply that for whoever wants it, right? Meaning, who wants it and who's willing to do what it takes to make that happen for themselves. You let government try to create that for you. Yeah, so it's called Section 8 project housing. That's the government's best shot at it, and it doesn't. So government can't do much very well.
Do not depend on government.
No, do not depend on government to try to provide the American dream for you, because they will fail miserably, as they always have. And now the truckers actually are going to get started in the U.S. They're going to go from California to Washington. What do you guys think about that?
No, I love that. I'm all for that, man. God bless them. Somebody needs to do something, and this is going to hurt. Economically, we're going to feel it. But you have to look at the root of the issue and why they're doing it. It's time that we all just address that issue. These mandates are ridiculous. Yep. We need to stop with all that. I can't fathom back in 1910 during the Spanish flu if President Woodrow Wilson would have given a speech and said, well, unless you do this, this, and this, you guys can't go to work, you can't do this, you can't go to the store. I mean, it wasn't even the thought of anybody in America to do any type of mandate.
It wouldn't have been tolerated. I mean, those people wouldn't have tolerated it.
For a reason. It's not logical.
Right.
We all need to work. We all need to pay bills. We all need to live our lives. And, I mean, you are an individual that needs to make up your own decision on how you're going to take care of yourself. but you don't need government to tell you what to do.
Because that's a slippery slope. Once you allow government to tell you how to live your life, especially when it comes to your constitutional rights, your unalienable rights, right? The rights that there's no way they're supposed to be taken away from us any way, shape, or form. And then here you have government doing that very thing, right? Yeah. You right there, you have to know, like, okay, this is not okay. And it's regardless of your political views. It doesn't matter your left, right, center, doesn't even matter. Anytime government is going to tell you what to do with your body, what to do with your livelihood, where to, how to live, what to think, what information is okay for you to listen to, what information is okay for you to be exposed to. When government goes there, okay, that obviously, it only has one definition. It's called communism.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It can be called nothing else. There's no free society that can do that. It's called communism. Yeah. That's the definition. And that's what we've been living under, unfortunately, for the last 2 years. We've been living under a communist society. Now, thank God, we're in the United States. Canada, going back to the Canada situation, they have provinces, but they're federal. I mean, they're, centralized government that controls the provinces. Thank God for us in the United States, we have, we are the United States. Yeah. And the founding fathers here were very, very smart about putting states' rights above federal rights. Yeah. So that each state would have the right to run things the way they want to run things. And without that, thank God, without that, if the federal government had been in charge of everybody, it would all be New York, where they're throwing, they're throwing little kids out of restaurants in New York right now. And we all know the demographic that, it doesn't have we can't say it because we'll get censored, that doesn't have the special passes to go to these restaurants. We know the specific demographic. So the same people that are telling you that everything they do is about this certain demographic are the same people that are throwing them out of restaurants because they don't have this special card they're supposed to have.
This great experiment of ours in America would have ended a long time ago if we didn't have states' rights, or if the federal government was more in control of things, because it shouldn't. It wasn't designed that way. And if you're a business owner and you want me to wear a mask coming into your business, fine, I'll do it. But I hate when local government, the county government, the government makes me do something. Why? I ask my elected officials, why did you vote that way? Well, I saw Dr. So-and-so on this cable network, and he said the science, and we go back to it. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. And again, individual rights, and I'm all for, private businesses, when it comes to dress codes and things like that. Now, obviously it kind of gets a little hairy when you talk about who you can and can't discriminate against as far as a small business.
Yeah.
There's HIPAA. There's medical medical rules you have to follow if you have a business that's open to the public. And if you're a private business like us, where, again, I can lock that door and just tell everybody, don't come in here. But if you're a business that's open to the public and you start discriminating based on even people, how they're dressed, you're going down a road. And I think a lot of these businesses and business owners, you may want to pay attention to this before you put in these restrictions. When this turns and it goes to after the fact, and then people are going to start circling back. And first thing people do when there's an emergency or when there's something people are worried about, then that's what they focus on. The second that's all gone and there's no more emergency or no more thing to focus on, what people do? They circle right back and they say, who damaged me? And then here come the lawsuits. Yep. And business owners, you better pay attention to this, because you could be opening yourselves up to some serious liability when it comes to discrimination based on any of these special cards people are needing, any of these special requirements that were never passed into law, that were never, something that the people agreed to, and then you now are discriminating based on that. You're gonna end up getting sued. You're gonna end up getting sued big time. And then when it comes to the employees and that whole situation with making employees do certain medical things that we can't talk about specifically, but when you start making employees do certain medical experiments, and those experiments end up finding out later they're not so good, the liability that some business owners are going to have is going to be tremendous.
Yeah.
Absolutely tremendous. There's going to be some big lessons learned throughout this whole debacle, some big lessons. And, unfortunately, wish we didn't have to go through it, but, maybe every, couple hundred years or so, a country has to go through some really, really crazy shit to really realize like how good they had it, right? Otherwise, I guess, you don't really realize how good you had it, right? Until you don't have it. So the supply chain, let's talk about the supply chain a little bit. What are you guys doing to prepare for the supply chain disruptions?
What are you doing?
Man.
I don't the pre-show. Everybody run to the store. No, I'm just kidding.
The only thing I've really done, overall, 'cause I got water, dry foods, like always, just in case, always have it.
Right.
But past that, I'm a strong 2A kind of guy. I love, the history behind, restrictions on weapons and such. Free states are the ones that have their guns, and you see other countries that don't have it. So that's what I've stocked up on, more so than anything else. But, I haven't hit the panic mode so much. I haven't gone for my toilet paper or anything. I haven't stocked up on that.
Which is the weirdest thing, the toilet paper. Yeah. Still to this day, there's a lot of alternative solutions to toilet paper. Yeah. You don't really have to have it. I mean, it's a luxury. I get it. It's nice. I mean, trust me, I love my good quality 2-ply. But talk about something you don't actually have to have, especially if you're quarantining at home or you're staying at home. You really hopping in the shower or the tub and washing your ass is a way superior solution.
And if we really hit that bad of a supply chain issue, I think that's going to be the least of my worries. I'm more like, how am I going to eat or even drink? Because if you're not eating, you ain't going to need that toilet paper.
No, exactly. The toilet paper eliminates itself at that point.
Yeah.
I think obviously we're going to see some more disruption to the supply chain. The craziest thing about the trucking thing, the mandates, is the whole thing with they can't cross the international borders unless they have this special card, which you're talking about a guy or, a woman. I mean, a lot of female truckers. You're talking about a person that's in the truck by themselves driving on a road, right, that couldn't be more socially distanced, going to a place. And, anybody who knows anything about trucking, truckers don't interact with anybody. So they go, they park the vehicle, they back up to the dock, they open the doors, and then some guys come with some forklifts and unload the truck. Mm-hmm. And then, when he's leaving, they have him sign a bill of lading. It's all outside usually. Have a sign a bill of lading, and whoever can wear muzzles can wear muzzles, and, sign here real quick that you unloaded this and you got it all and everything's in good shape, and that's it. And the trucker's on their way. Truckers isn't hanging out with a whole bunch of freaking people. It's not like, there's any reason for it whatsoever outside of to disrupt the supply chain. Yeah. I mean, that's the only reason to do that mandate is like somebody, and, we know who that somebody is intentionally trying to disrupt the supply chain. And people don't realize how much food comes out of Mexico, right? Mm-hmm. In South America, and all the food that comes out of South America or comes from South America, bananas, a lot of our fresh fruits and vegetables, that all comes up through Mexico. Well, you've just cut off half of that out of Canada, coming from Canada to the U.S. I mean, British Columbia Vancouver is a huge port. Tons of stuff comes in through there, and now you can prevent all those trucks coming from Canada into the United States. I mean, we already had supply chain issues.
Yeah.
We already have empty shelves. We already have things that are ridiculously expensive now because of shortages. And now this,
but what is
absolutely crazy.
Why?
Again, the science. That's all there is to it, because there's no reason to do it.
To me, that's not a reason. It's just not a reason to impose such mandates on people. There's
no logic behind it. I mean, there's no logic behind these mandates for anybody.
Yeah.
Let alone for truckers that are by themselves in a truck 99.9% of the time. Again, if you're going to pick any demographic and say, okay, who should this insane mandate apply to? That would be like last on the list.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So this person's in a truck by themselves for like 99.9% of the time, can't even come in contact with anybody if they wanted to. Yep. Oh, that's the ones. We got to single them out. I mean, that's absolutely insane. Again, the only logical conclusion is it's an intentional thing to disrupt the supply chain further, which, again, we don't want to go down those rabbit holes now, but what could that possibly be about? What is that really about? You know? So, I mean, unfortunately, businesses, your supply chains are going to get tighter now because of this. And until we have freedom of movement, freedom of shipping, until we have functioning imports and functioning trucks and functioning crane operators and trains and everything else, we're not going to fix the supply chain. And until we fix the supply chain, you're going to look at continued mass inflation. You're going to look at continued shortages. And that's going to be real problematic. I don't think we're past it. I think we're just barely even getting started.
We're just starting, very much so. The inflation's going to be crazy, and that's going to lead to another recession because people just won't be able to afford cost of living.
It's such a weird dynamic. And again, you can look at some of the, experts, self-proclaimed experts, media-proclaimed experts on economics. And what happens in this situation? What happens when you have a huge supply of money, right? Still, interest rates are still ridiculously cheap. Banks are trying to get rid of this money as fast as they can. And then you have limited supply. Well, with a lot of supply of money and a limited supply of goods, the price of the goods goes up.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just economics 101, supply and demand.
Yeah.
The problem becomes, like you say, when you have a huge percentage of the population that can't afford the goods. So yeah, even though the prices might be higher, right? When a good chunk of the people can't afford them anymore, well, it doesn't matter. The price is higher. They will sit on the shelf. Then, of course, now the supply will grow, and now the price starts to come down. But then you still have like this mass money, and then you get those deflation, right? Where things actually start, instead of inflation, you get deflation. But then the money will stop flowing, and then they got to jack interest rates. I mean, this all happened to us in the late 70s.
Well, that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
Like we're repeating that cycle. The 70s going into recession in the 80s, and it's almost like we're following the blueprint step by step.
Yeah, we're following that Jimmy Carter, late 70s blueprint, high gas prices, shortages, and then ridiculous fiscal, lending, where the government tries to juice the economy, but then it gets going so hot that you end up with, a home mortgage is going to cost like 15% interest rates. Well, how are you going to have, people can't afford houses now. Yeah. How are you going to drive housing prices up so high to where it only works if there's 3% interest, and then all of a sudden here you're going to come with 15% interest because you have to slow the economy down? Mm-hmm. How's that supposed to work? And now you're either going to crash the housing market again. You're going to deflate everything. You're going to crash the automotive industry. You're going to crash the housing industry. Or you're going to jack interest rates up, and then, or you're going to have just runaway inflation that's just going to be unsolvable. And people don't realize, it's great my house is going up in value. It is and it isn't. Because the money you have in the bank and the paycheck that you make is becoming worth less and less and less.
Yep.
And something's got to give. It can't just go on like that. Something's going to have to give. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, the people that are in charge are not making the right moves for that to have any chance of solving itself, right?
No.
Which is getting pretty scary. It's getting pretty scary, I tell you.
Yeah.
So what are you doing to prepare for inflation, Shane?
That one's going to be based on like me exploring, opening businesses in the future, man. Like the problem with inflation, it relates with, you can't be an employee and survive in it because, like a basic employee. Like
you can't be making $15 an hour and survive it. You can't. It's a sad reality. It is our poor getting poorer now.
Yeah.
And again, the same people that are in charge that promise to help poor people are literally crushing poor people.
Yes.
Generations. Not just this people right now in the current
moment.
Government
bailouts and government assistance actually weakening you. It keeps you in a box, and it doesn't help you in the long run.
Oh, it can only crush you.
Yeah.
I mean, again, anybody, it doesn't matter, any assistance, government assistance, or your brother's going to pay for your way or whatever. Anytime somebody pays for you, it's going to crush you because it de-incentivizes you.
Yep.
You know, and that's what they've done, unfortunately. And with the attempted stimulus, anytime government's going to try to attempt to stimulate things, it's going to go south. It always does.
It's not free. Somebody paid for it.
Yeah,
I know I did.
nothing's free. Well, you know, and this whole idea of tax the rich, you know, just tax the rich some more. Okay, so you tax the rich, which doesn't work because the super rich can't be taxed. Well, first of all, there's not enough of them to even add up to anything. Secondly, they're going to have the best lawyers and the best CPAs. They're going to find their way around it. Then you have companies like Apple and Microsoft. They're going to offshore their money and their earnings, so then they're going to pay nothing on it anyway. So you can't tax the super rich. So all that's left is the middle class and small business owners. That's all there's left to tax. You can't tax the super rich enough to make a difference.
Oh, that is correct.
So middle class gets taxed, and then business owners gets taxed. Well, here now becomes that problem. So now they're paying more taxes. What ends up happening? They have to raise their prices at their businesses, right? Which now the poor people can't afford to go to anymore. Did that help the poor people? No, it did not. That's why I just, I cringe every time I hear a politician say, oh, we got to just tax the rich some more, and that'll solve the poor people's problem.
Oh, yeah. Whenever I hear a politician say we're not going to tax working middle-class families, it's a lie, because they will. They'll find a way to get that money.
There's
back.
no other demographic to tax. There's nobody else that has any money to take.
Yeah.
That's it. Those are the only ones.
So let's say like somebody taxes the rich and rich corporations. Well, for example, in my job, when that happens, they start subtracting more from the checks of the employees. The payroll tax goes up.
Right.
So I see less on my check. And I'm like, wait, but they told me I wasn't going to get taxed. Well, the federal government didn't directly tax me, but my company got taxed because the federal government taxed.
Exactly, and then you have pass-through tax, right? Which again, this is what hurts the poor the most. So again, this whole premise that you can tax your way and give money to the poor, you can't, and here's why: because the people you're taxing have to raise their prices, which then the poor people have to then pay the higher price, which that becomes the tax. Mm-hmm. The poor people end up paying the tax. The middle class doesn't even pay the tax. The poor people pay the tax with their lack of spending power. Same thing happens at the gas pump. You raise gas prices, that becomes a tax. It becomes a pass-through tax on poor people that go to the gas station. They got to fill up their car. It now costs them an extra $20, $25. Yeah. That's a tax. See? So when you think that you're on the side asking for taxes to be raised so you can get some freebies, understand this. All that's going to happen is prices are going to go up, and now you're going to have to pay them if you want anything. If you want to eat, if you want to put gas in your car, if you want to buy a used car, right? How much of used car value has gone up in the last year and a half?
Oh, Lord, yeah.
40%?
Yeah.
This whole 5%, 6% inflation is bullshit. It is 30, 35, 40% inflation. That's what it really is. Because let's face it, there's only a few things that our poor people can even buy or need to buy or want to buy. Food, housing, transportation, and fuel. Yeah. That's it. Now, every one of those four basic things that every person, needs has gone up at least 30 to 40%.
Too much.
Insurance, automotive insurance. One of my good buddies is automotive, is a farmer's agent. They've raised rates 30%.
My truck just went up 30%. Yeah. I think it was $90 additional on top of it for insurance. I was like,
I had to go up another 90 on mine.
Yeah. And that's what happens when you try to tax the middle class, because there is no taxing the rich. So you tax the middle class, you tax the business owners. That's what you get.
Now I'm forced to
get
buy
higher
medical
prices.
Insurance. I have to pay medical insurance now, forcefully.
Oh, because the employers are not going to chip in as much. Yeah. And then, you get employers will start taking benefits away, because they can't afford them, or they have to make up for the extra taxes. Again, if you want the economy to do well, if you want poor people to do well, lower taxes. That will let poor people do better, because there'll be less pass-through taxes. So our poorest only benefit when taxes get lowered. When they get raised, our poor people pay the price. Again, that's got to be a conversation that stops getting shut down, because that's what you got to understand. cannot have high taxes and benefit the poor. It does not work. Yeah, we could go on forever. You know, the bottom line is, business owners, look, get prepared for the changing economy. Get prepared for where we're at with the headwinds. Again, I mentioned at the beginning of the show. Unfortunately, we would like to, as business owners, say, none of this stuff matters. It's just all like news, and I don't pay attention to the news. Hopefully in this 45 minutes, 50 minutes we've spent together, you see that this stuff actually impacts your business many, many ways. You have supply chain shortages. You're going to have higher taxes for your business. You're going to have higher income taxes. You're going to have higher property tax rates. You're going to have higher fuel costs, higher delivery costs. Does this impact your business? Hell yeah, it impacts your business. So here's what I'm going to say on the parting on this. Canadian truckers, you go. You shut that place down. You don't stop. You don't stop. You go all the way until they lift every mandate there is, period. You don't stop. American truckers, same thing. You roll there, you roll to DC, you roll wherever, you shut it down. You don't stop until every mandate is lifted, because not until then, not until that happens, not until we break these totalitarian criminals that have taken over our freedoms and our government, are we going to get back to normal? You want to get back to normal? It ain't going to be wearing a muzzle. It ain't going to be taking an experiment. Getting back to normal is going to be getting our freedom back, crushing every mandate, getting control back from these criminals that have taken control, and making sure that this never happens to us again. That's the only way out. Is the only way out for us, only way out for business owners. So I hope when these trucks roll, when these trucks in the United States roll, I hope we do exactly what they did in Canada, and I hope we all go out there and support them. I hope we give them tons of money. I hope we make it so they don't have to worry about any money. I hope we feed them along the road. I hope we show up in droves and just line these roads where they're going to be going with American flags and patriotic flags, and you root them on, because we have to send a clear message to the people that think they're in charge, who's really in charge. And Shane said it. Who's really in charge? Us. Us, the people. When we want to shut shit down, we can shut shit down real quick. And you set them into hiding, like Justin Trudeau's in hiding right now, and it won't take long. They'll tap. Right, just look at Boris Johnson and look at some of the prime ministers in Europe. They tapped real quick when they realized the people weren't cool with it anymore. So stop being okay with it. Hey, if you haven't found your voice in this yet, you need to find your voice. I know it's tough, but you got to do it. You got to speak up. If you don't, if you remain silent, then you agree to it. Again, if your abuser is going to abuse you and you remain silent, it's the same thing as agreeing. You have to realize you've got to say no. No means no. You got to say no. So if you haven't said no yet, stand up and say no. Any parting thoughts from you guys?
It reminds me of that old Ronald Reagan saying at his inaugural speech, government is not the solution. It's the problem.
Correct.
We can make decisions on our own that benefit us and our community without a federal government or even local government telling us what to do.
Small government, right?
Yes.
Small government. Any final thoughts, Shane?
I just, I'm hoping for the truckers, praying for them. Do what you need to do to get everything back to normal, because they're not going to let us back to normal. 2 years ago, it was 2 weeks.
Yep.
So at this point,
we're on like the 700th day of 2 weeks.
Yep.
Yeah. Until we take it back, they're not giving it back. Right. No one's going to give you, no one's going to give up the power you gave them. It doesn't work that way. It's not how human beings are programmed. You have to take it back. The only way. You got to take it back. All right, guys. I hope you got some good stuff out of this show. Please like, subscribe, comment. Love to hear the feedback from you. Fans of Shane, let him know, you really appreciate it. Let him know it's all about the voice, about the deep voice and the beard. And we will see you guys on the next one.